Okay, I'll call the meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals to order. First thing we do is the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. I think everybody got those by email. Is there any additions or corrections? If not, one of you needs to make a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, they're approved. The other thing is we need a motion for the proof of publication to make it a matter of record. I need a motion for that.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to make the proof of publication a matter of record. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We're not going to do the election of anything, Tim,
What's that?
right? No.
We can go ahead and hold the matters, and then we'll do the administrative things afterwards, if that's all right.
Okay, the first thing before the board is David Beer on behalf of Midwest Spa, and I passed around the affidavit for the applications of the property owners around that area. So I need to make that a matter of record, so I need a motion for that.
So moved.
Oops, wrong one, Tim. I'll get the right one here. There you go. And a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's a matter of...
Yeah, I saw it. Okay, thank you.
Yep, they've all saw those. Passed them around. Okay, David, on behalf of Midwest Auto Spa LLC, is requesting a variance for off-premise signage in a C2 zoning district at 509 South 13th Street, Decatur, Indiana, 46733. This is in reference to City Code 150.331 signs. So, need the applicant, which is David, to present your application at this time.
Okay. I'm here. So I'm here today to apply for a variance for the newly updated sign ordinance. My wife and I, we both have businesses here in Decatur. She has Edward Jones Financial Office, and I have the car wash. We spend our time volunteering and coaching and doing different things in the city. We did not just grow up in Decatur, we're not from Boston and Haley, Central New City, but we've really come to enjoy the city and all of its people. We have created 3 jobs for the city, not including for ourselves, and we're trying to grow our businesses to provide for our family and the community. It all started because we decided to promote Haley's business on our fence row right behind the car wash. And then after doing that, I had several people approach me to advertise as well. One of the businesses that I had to reach out to was actually Biggs, and they wanted to advertise on my fence as well. So they're just a neighbor that saw it and thought it was a great idea. I'm using the local sign maker, Premier Signs, to make all the signs. And like I said, the ones that I have up there have all reached out to me to promote their businesses as well, so they can better provide for their families. The signs, in my opinion, are just there for our customers to see while they're washing, not necessarily anything else. I mean, it's behind my building, so it's not right on 27 affecting traffic or being a distraction. That's why I am here applying for it.
Okay. Does the board have any questions? Dave?
No, I just make the statement, it is a solid fence now, so nothing's visible from the neighbor behind or anything.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there Dave, do you have any?
No, I've been by.
I mean, I
Yeah.
kind of drove by and saw that
Right.
they, are on your existing fence, so. Is there anybody then in the audience that would like to speak, from people that are in opposition? Don't see any. Is there anybody, that the board would hear comments from people in favor? I don't see any. So the next thing, is there any final questions from the board, or Tim? Or Kurt?
So, all right, as far as our sign ordinance is concerned, off-premise or off-site signs are prohibited. So that's why he's here tonight. One thing he'll need to do is fill out for an application for a sign permit. Because off-site or off-premises signs are prohibited, we'll need to decide how we need to charge you. Usually for a sign permit, it's $100 per sign. He has 5 signs here. Are you going to treat the fence as a billboard and consider it one big sign, or does he need to pay per sign?
Is that what they do along in the country?
Huh?
The small signs along the highway that you see that are 3 by 5, is that considered the same as a billboard for a permit, or?
It depends on what the sign is. I mean, if it's a real estate sign, their real estate signs are covered. There's no fees for those. You can
Right.
put a real estate sign up anywhere. As far as the county, I'm not sure how the county governs that. But then once again, if he takes one of these signs down and puts another sign up, he'll have, for each sign he normally would put up, he would have to fill out for a sign permit and pay a fee. So if, say Craig's Auto Repair here decides that he no longer wants to advertise there, and he tears that sign down and he puts Little Caesars up here, technically he would have to fill out another application for a sign permit, unless you decide that he can treat this whole fence as one billboard. Several different things we need to look at here, because that's not covered in our sign.
Are these going to be uniform in size, the signs?
They're all the same size, yes, sir.
So could you just, do you have any idea how many signs can be put on the fence?
Total of 10 to 11 signs is all that will fit on the fence.
I guess one question that I would have, Kurt, is if, let's say there's room for 10 signs of a uniform size, or 3 by 5 or whatever they are. Can you do an application for a sign site regardless of what's being advertised in those? So that if that changes, as long as the sign still fits within that, that area,
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying?
Well, typically, like if Bears Den wanted to put a new sign up, he tore his old sign down and put a new one up, he would have to come in and fill out a new permit application.
Even if it's the same dimensions?
Correct. That is covered in our ordinance.
Okay.
But what is not covered in our ordinance are billboards. For some reason, billboards got left out, so that's why we're bringing this up. We need to decide how he can treat this offense.
It's the application.
Under the billboard, it can be changed at any time. Is that the components of the sign?
That's the thing, billboards are not covered in our sign ordinance.
Okay.
For some reason, billboards were left out when the committee put this ordinance together. And I do know, as we start thinking about it, there are 2 billboards on US 27, but usually those are governed by NDOT.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one on 224, which again would be governed by
NDOT's gonna have control of those. And that may be, you know, we may not have had any billboards elsewhere, so it may not, that's probably why there's
If
nothing
somebody
in
wanted
there.
to put a billboard up, then technically that is a structure, and depending on the size of the billboard and what would be required to hold it up, they may have to get a state design release. So at that point, we would be out of it again.
I guess, you know, if we don't have anything in our ordinance that treats it as a billboard, I'm not sure what authority we have to treat it in that capacity or charge it, you know, without having something that shows what the fee is. So it's probably more an individual per sign. The only question I had was, do you have to reapply for a permit every time a sign gets changed?
Technically, that's the way our ordinance is written. If you replace, if a sign gets old and dilapidated and you want to put up a new one, or you've got just a normal wooden sign, and Mr. Planters, they put in a new LED sign down there. They had to fill out a new application and pay the sign permit. Now, the other thing is, if you look at the application, it does have on here off-premise. Even though our ordinance prohibits it, there is an off-premise sign, but it's $500 per sign.
So this is a fence that's on your property that adjoins the car wash? Is that what this is?
Yes.
It's not a fence that surrounds the car wash on car wash property?
It is on Car Wash.
On car wash property,
It's on car wash property.
So then why is that on or off premise?
Because he's advertising for other businesses. So technically, he's representing Edward Jones, which is not on the premise. He's advertising for Craig's Auto Repair, which is not on the premises. He's also for Ideal or Biggs, who's not on the premises.
Give that to Tim.
You what?
Give it to Tim.
Yeah. Yeah, I went by there,
Give it
yeah.
to him.
It's just on the east side of the car wash there on 13th Street, you know.
And you can scroll down or scroll over one.
And based off what we come off tonight is how we're going to treat this going forward, because obviously somebody else is going to think this is a good idea.
Right.
They're going to want to do it. So this won't be the end of this, I guarantee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got the perfect situation for it because his building blocks it all.
Right.
It's just for people that are actually using the car wash.
Right.
But you can see people wanting to put it down the side of their building
Yeah, I
too now.
can see other people want, yeah.
Well, I
People
think-
who want the Napa building are interested in doing that as well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, if you're going to treat the fence as a billboard, you know, just like you're saying, if Napa wants to treat the side of their building, is that then a billboard? I mean, I think you get into some real questions about what is and what isn't a billboard. And the fact that we don't have anything in the ordinance right now that even addresses that, it seems to me that it's probably a per sign situation. The question is, what are you going to charge if it's not, you know, I guess, how do you, I'm assuming you charge something for people to put up their signs.
Yes.
You know, is that just a pass-through cost to whoever wants to advertise there? That whatever the cost of a sign application is, that's something you're going to pass through to that business?
It will be moving forward, yes.
You don't want to pay it, right?
I would suggest that's probably good. Otherwise, it could get expensive, especially if it's going to be something you have to apply over and over again. One thing that that you might do, Kurt, and I don't know if you have an opinion about this or whether there's other communities that have already addressed this that we could take a look at, but, you know, is 100 for on-premise advertising and 500 for off-premise, where did those figures come from? I mean, those are just in our code.
They were here long before me.
Yeah, I understand. But I mean, I guess maybe we ought to take a look at that to see, does that make sense?
I can surely do that. As far as what he has here, how big are the signs in the line right now?
They're 5 by 8.
5 by 8? What's the typical sign that you do? $100? $100 for the first sign. Yeah, but we don't know where the off-premises figure came from. We don't know where it came from. And that could be based on size. We need to look into that.
We need to table it, right?
It depends on,
So that's another dilemma we run into is off-premise signs, the application versus what's in our ordinance, they're prohibited. So first you need to decide, are you going to allow him to do off-premise signs? In other words, advertise for other companies, businesses. And then I guess we can look at the pricing. I myself, my personal opinion is I think $500 is a bit much, or no bigger than the signs are. Our typical fee is $100 per sign.
Are these...
For a general business, let's say for your law office, you put one big sign up and then you want to put other signs around it, there's another $20.
$20 for a lesser sign.
Right.
Right.
But, you know, the main sign is $100. In my opinion, if you allow him to do an off-premise sign, in my opinion, we would stick to the wall-mounted principle, which would be $100 per sign if they're all the same size.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would still, because of the way our ordinance is set up, if he changes the sign out to another business or adds another one, it would be another sign permit for $100. Unless he exceeds the size, you know, let's say he goes 16 feet by 5 feet, then we need to look at that.
Well, I think, you know, I think if it's a wall-mounted sign, obviously, even though it's off-premise, you know, I think it would be per mount, and if you're saying it would have to be a new application if that sign gets changed out.
Yes, because any other business in town, if they come in and they say they want a new sign, I'm going to be charging them, if it's a wall mount, I'm going to be charging them $100 for that new sign.
And are you limiting the size of it? Can it, you know, if to something no more than 5 by 8, if that's the size of the sign?
On a building, it depends on the square footage of where the sign's going. That also affects the price as well. You're only allowed to have a certain percentage. Like you can't cover more than, or you can cover up to, what, 50% of the surface area of the structure. You can't go any more than that. That's on a building, and he's on a fence.
Come on, Tim, work your magic.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's not my decision,
You know,
but
the ball diamonds and whatever are, I guess, a non-profit, but if you look at all the baseball diamonds in the outfield, they've got all kinds of advertising. So is that similar to this, or is it because they're nonprofit that they can do that, or
I don't know
at
how
the
that's been
parks?
handled in the past.
I mean,
It's never been handled that way in the past because it's owned by the city.
Right.
Just like with the county, if the county or federal government comes in and does work, I can't charge a permit fee for state and federal regulation. So as far as the ball diamond, it's owned by the city, so I can't charge myself a permit fee. But that's a valid point. I mean, we do have signs on fences out of the ball diamond.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in my opinion, that would answer our question as to whether he can do this. It's just now a matter of, okay, what do we charge him? And do we charge him every time he changes
Well,
the sign?
You know, from my perspective, legally, I don't think we can treat it as a billboard because we don't have a billboard statute. I think it would have to be individuals. If you're going to allow it, you know, you have a provision in your fee schedule for wall-mounted signs. In this particular case, you know, you could possibly grant a variance to allow it, even though it's off-premise approval. You can grant a variance from the fee as well as allowing it on the fence. It's just that it may require us to really take a look at our sign ordinance to see. I think it raises a lot of questions that we probably haven't addressed. So you can do one of two things. You could either table it for you to get more information, and then we could bring this back up at the next meeting after we've had a chance to look into it a little bit, or you can craft conditions to the grant of a variance and go forward today. And that's up to you as the board members. You know, and the problem gets a little bit difficult because by the next meeting we may have one or two new members. Right now we're short member because of term expirations or because of somebody that had to resign because they took a different elected office. So, you know, so if you tried to table it, it may be a problem because they didn't participate in this initial hearing. So, I think, you know, if you say that you're going to allow this, it would be limited to a 3 or a 5x8 sign mounted on the fence. You wouldn't allow more than whatever number of signs could be mounted of that size. You charge $100 a fine, a sign, and any new signs that replace one existing would be a new application. In the meantime, you know, if there's 4 or 5 signs that are up or they're added, you know, hopefully we can take a look at our ordinance and get something in place so that in the future, if we do have a situation where one is replaced or we run into this in other areas, we've got some mechanism. It's just that, you know, you're gonna run into a problem if all of a sudden everybody and their brother wants to put signs up all over the city, whether it's on the fence or a sidewalk. You know, in this case, you could qualify this by the fact that this really is the signs can only be observed by the patrons of his business. And because of that, you're granting the variance. It's not like you're putting it on the side of a fence in a corner lot in a subdivision, you know, where you got signs all over the place, and I think you'd have neighbors objecting to that. Were there any comments from any of the surrounding businesses, pro or con?
We haven't heard anything.
Okay. No comments one way or the other?
No, I just heard that makes the fence look better.
Yeah, well, So,
He has the perfect scenario here where
Right.
otherwise two brothers will have signs down the side of it, and everybody else would too. I mean, it's just,
mhm. So-
Theoretically, they can do that according to our ordinance, they would just have to pay for each sign.
right.
Right.
You can't go over 50% of the square footage.
Right. And I think the other thing would be to take a look at the pricing on on-premise freestanding signs and off-premise, whether 500 is an appropriate figure. And again, that's something that we can look at possibly modifying after we check with other communities to see what the cost is that they charge. So you can either table it or you can craft a, variance and put conditions on it.
My recommendation to the board is to grant a variance with conditions. Anybody else who wants to come forward or wants to do this same thing, they're going to have to come, we'll probably require them to come in front of the BZA as well, and it will be a case-by-case scenario depending on location. I doubt that happens between now and the time we figure out what we're going to do with the ordinance. Because like I said, our application has pricing for off-premise. Our ordinance has restrictions for off-premise. I'll get with other communities. But I don't see, with his situation, the signs are pretty much hidden in the back. It's not like they're right out there on US 27 in plain sight. I mean, you can't see them from an angle as you're going by. It's not a distraction.
You probably need to write something about content of the sign, or as far, I mean, your signs all look professional, but you get some people want to do their own sign, you know what I mean, not...
That's my recommendation.
So what do you think?
Sounds good to me. I'd go for that.
You're okay, or?
Yeah. Make a motion, Dave.
So move. Go ahead.
Second.
Okay, so I can clarify this so that Aaron knows what to put in a minute. Okay, so what you're suggesting is that each sign would be an individual sign, would be limited in size to 5 by 8. If a sign is replaced, it would require a new permit application. The application fee per sign is $100. And the variance is granted on those conditions, and is granted because of the fact that this is an isolated area, not readily available for viewing other than on the business itself. And for that reason, you're really treating it as part of the business operations.
So are we gonna do the 10 signs, or
Well, you can, if there's room for 10 signs, then you
So-
can limit it to a maximum of 10 signs, 5 by 8 in size, for this particular location. Is that what you're comfortable with that?
Yes, I'm good with that.
Okay, so,
so is that your motion, Dave?
Yeah, what he
that was
said.
his Dave and his second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I hope you got that wrote down, because we need to go through wherever it's at here,
Yeah, you need to go through the findings.
finding the facts.
Yeah.
Okay, again, I'll read the finding of facts, and yes, you agree, and no, you disagree with the statements. First one, the granting of the variance will not permit any use in any district which would be in conflict with the permitted use of the district under the terms of this chapter.
Yes.
Yes.
It's 3 yeses. It will not impair an adequate supply of light and air to the adjacent property.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 3 yeses. It will not unreasonably increase the congestion in public streets.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 3 yeses. It will not increase the danger of fire or of public safety.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 3 yeses. It will not unreasonably diminish or impair established property values within the surrounding area.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 3 yeses. It will not, in any other respect, impair the public health, comfort, safety, morals, or welfare of the inhabitants of the city.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 3 yeses. It is therefore that the decision of the board that the petition for variance is granted or denied.
Granted.
Granted.
Granted with
the
conditions
that
stated
you
conditions.
previously approved.
Okay, so your variance is, with the conditions, is granted. And we thank you.
I'm busy. Start sticking a slew of pins, right?
Yeah. You would think he would have a couple pins from the funeral home, wouldn't you? To pass
You'd
out?
think he'd pick one up, I don't know.
I didn't write on there that whole variance. I don't know.
And what I would do is, conditions, just type in on what the board has signed. Okay, those go there.
Okay. We'll get to you. I need a motion for the second one for Jeff and Kelly Miller. They're requesting a special exception for their home occupation. We need to make a matter of record the affidavit of public notice to the neighbors.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, will the applicants please step up to the microphone, which I think is on. Hope.
Jeff and Kelly Miller, we're here seeking to start a home occupation of a beauty shop, 35 homes for residential area.
Before you do that, I should have read what the whole thing was, just for the matter of record here. Sorry. Jeff and Kelly Miller are requesting a special exception for the home occupation in a RH zoning district at 35 Homestead, Decatur, Indiana, 46733. Reference to City Code 150.091, contingent uses permitted by special exception, a home occupation. Okay, I'm sorry. So basically you want to put a shop in that, yeah. And if I read the application right, it's just one chair. And there's plenty of parking area for
6 cars.
customers and,
And that area would have an occupancy load of about 2, and they have enough to park 6 cars in their driveway.
okay, well, that's what I was
That's more
thinking.
than adequate. Also, they did full permits for the chair and the sink and some electrical work earlier on, and all inspections were done. Everything was good. And we heard no complaints. We've had
No complaints,
calls,
yeah.
No one called in and spoke in favor or against.
Okay. Dave, any questions or?
Nope.
The other Dave? Okay, we'll ask for if there's anybody in the audience that wants to speak against this, which there is none, I guess, or if there's anybody in the audience to speak for it. If that's not the case, if there's no final questions from the board, we'll do the finding of facts again for the special exception. Again, yes, you agree with the statement, no, you disagree. The establishment, maintenance, or operation of this special exception will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
I never
3
seen it
yeses.
work.
They have.
The special exception will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair property value within the neighborhood.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 3 yeses. The establishment of the special exception will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding property for uses permitted in the district.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 3 yeses. Adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 3 yeses. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress and egress so designed to minimize traffic congestion in the public streets.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 3 yeses. The special exception will be located in a district where such use is permitted and where all other requirements set forth in 150.263 applicable to the special exception will be met.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 3 yeses. It is therefore the decision of the board that the petition for special exception is granted or denied.
Granted.
Granted.
Granted, 3 granted, with no restrictions. So you're special, you can get started.
And if you want to put signs across the front of the building, come see us.
There's a place you can advertise.
Billboard.
Thank you. Done.
I need a pen.
Yes, I didn't take the cap off that time. Got that?
I think I hit everything there.
Oh, and there's your pen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any old business?
There's no old business and there's no new business, but I would like to talk about current business on the signs.
Well, okay. Are you going to do election officers now, or are you going to wait and do it when you have a full slate?
I'd say full slate,
We're
but
going to do it on a full slate.
Okay.
So,
Because basically there's two more.
two more we need to fill. So I don't know.
We got any new?
I know
No.
Dan mentioned that he's got one person, I think he mentioned Shane Cobble, either is going to be appointed or is willing to be considered, I think. So,
I mean, I'm,
So, as far as the signs, something I was thinking about as we were going through Jeff's life. I myself think we should amend the ordinance for off-site or off-premises signs to include an individual scenario for BZA approval. And in my opinion, I think if you're going to advertise for somebody else, I think they need to come in and get BZA approval, period. Because we need to look at where the sign's going to be, how big is the sign going to be. You know, he had the perfect scenario, the next person may not.
mhm.
Yeah, it'd be like me, Kurt, putting signs down everything.
Fence, right,
I
right.
don't want that down
Right.
either.
No, and, you know, like I said, he had the perfect scenario, and there may be other places out there that may be a good idea, you know, but there's definitely going to be places out there that don't. I'm still going to do the homework with other communities. I'll reach out to Lufton, I'll reach out to Huntington, Wabash, a few others. But at this point, where I'd like to go with it is to change the ordinance for as an individual scenario. Each case should have to come in front of BZA. I'm not sure why off-site or off-premises signs was put in here. I do know past employees in our office were not in favor of off-site signs. Don't know why. I'm going to find out why. But then at the same time, you know, this ordinance was adopted, but yet I got a application here that says off-premises signs $500. So these two are fighting each other.
So the ordinance says they're prohibited, but then we have an application fee for $500 that allows it.
My guess is because if they do fight it and go in front of the BZA as he did, then at least we have a fee that we can charge. That's my guess as to why that was on the application, but
You know, in my opinion, advertisement means business, and as long as it's not interfering with public safety, and it's not blatantly ugly, you know, there's no code on ugly, but
Well, one distinction that you might be able to make would be, in this case, the advertising really is for other businesses, but it's for the benefit of those that are patronizing that particular business.
Exactly.
So maybe you distinguish between, where the advertising has to be done in such a way that it is primarily for the use and benefit of those patronizing that location, as opposed to being readily visible to just advertise in general for people traveling up and down the street. So you might be able to make a distinction in that way.
And also something for strip clubs. Pinehurst, North Carolina had that outfit called Gold Club, because all the golfers go down there, open the great big strip joint, and they plastered signs all over that community, which is super nice. They got flowers down all between all the streets and stuff, and the strip joint had signs everywhere.
Yeah. Well,
Or like Mind's Eye putting signs down at the gas station over there by you,
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, it's just I think a lot of it's to try to stop that, but
well, and that's
tough.
that's why I say,
Tough to write up.
yeah, well, we do have a sexual-oriented business statute, but I don't know if it addresses off-premises advertising. Well, it doesn't. I think it's limited to addressing on-site.
Mhm.
Well, it really doesn't talk about that. The only place in our ordinance that has anything to do with that is mandated into an high-zoned area only.
Right.
So,
Well, maybe there's three, I guess. One is looking at the fee schedule itself to determine what's the reasoning behind the variation in expense for a fee. And second would be, do you want to try to distinguish between advertising of off-site businesses for those only who are patronizing that business versus, advertising along the street or where it's visible from the street. And then I guess the third thing would be, if you're going to try to, if you want to say that the only time you can do it regardless is with BZA approval, you could put something like that in as well. That way, the type of advertising, although technically, if somebody came to Mr. Beer and said, we want to advertise a strip joint, there's nothing that says he couldn't do that.
and to be honest, because of the location his signs are in, I don't think I'd have an issue with it. Now, if somebody came and said they want to put one out at US 27 right there in front of Kroger's.
Right.
Okay, I don't know. No.
Yeah, and, I mean, trying to, and that's the other thing you're going to get into, content of what's being advertised, that can get real tricky. Because, you can, because of the First Amendment protections of free speech, you got to be real careful that you can't, we had this happen, come up a couple years ago down at South Adams. They were talking about allowing churches to use their gymnasium, for services, which that's their prerogative. They can do that. But if you open that door, you don't have control over which church. So if somebody whose religious beliefs are not Christian, or whose religious beliefs are towards Satan and not God, you can't just say, no, we're going to allow these but not these. Okay? So it gets into some really sticky issues that have constitutional consequences, and trust me, you don't want to go into federal court and fight a constitutional battle. And I'll give you a real good example of what happened. A few years ago when we did our sexual-oriented business statute, that came about in particular because there was a rumor going around that somebody wanted to put in that type of business on 27. And we didn't have anything that regulated that. So I was given the task of trying to come up with something, and so, you know, you start looking at other communities' ordinances, and you realize that there's all kinds of things that you can or can't do. And what you wanted to do is try to follow ordinances that have been tested in the courts. So for the most part, that's what we did. No sooner than we had adopted that, than I got a call from Angola's city attorney saying, would you mind if we took a look at your ordinance, and can you send that to us in a Word format, because we have looked at a lot of them and we like yours, and we think it most fits our community. Okay. Well, I didn't know at the time that that's when they had the request for a strip joint up there. So they were scrambling to get something on file before that all happened. They did. They didn't allow the strip joint. The strip joint sued, and it went up to the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, and a 544-page opinion came down, and for the most part upheld the statute, or the ordinance. There were a few provisions that they threw out and said they were too broad, but I'm guessing that Angola probably spent $500,000 or $600,000 fighting that case. So when you get into these kind of issues, you got to be really careful, because that's expensive.
I think one of the key things there is what you said about the signs need to be for their customers. Because if you start thinking about the fences along 27 across the street from Back 40 and Andy's Car Wash, those fences could all turn into built signs all along there. Why wouldn't they? If other people are doing it, then we have to decide if that's what we want. You know, I think the kid came up with a great idea with what he's doing on the back. All those cars come out right there. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Now, I'd hate to see them all along 27. There's a bunch of little signs up and down there everywhere. So,
Well, yeah, they just put right there by the new Napa and the little strip mall there where Angel Bakery was.
yeah.
They're all on new fencing up there.
On the back side.
Oh, behind that?
Side, yeah. I mean,
Well, that's the golf course.
Has it?
Yeah.
Well,
On the other side of the road.
I mean,
But yeah, that could turn into all signs
yeah,
out there.
somebody hits up the golf course.
You can see it from there, it's blocked.
Like they mentioned, Danny, mines I put an off-site sign in front of Bears Head.
Right.
You wouldn't want to allow that either.
Right.
Not saying that like that.
Yeah. So to me, that's why I still think it should be a case-by-case scenario.
That's about the only way you can
Yeah,
control
that's the
it.
only way you can control it, because, yeah, you're right, if Mind's Eye comes in and they say, hey, we want to put a sign down there by Bears Den. Okay, well, now you're treating.
But so that's where the neighbors come in, and then it's up for these guys to decide whether they want to go with what the neighbor's argument is or the person appealing.
Yeah. Well, but the issue is, and you get into a situation where you got to be careful that you are consistent, because if you're not, then what you get challenged on is on the basis that you're acting arbitrarily and capriciously. So, we tried to, and I think in the minutes, it needs to be reflected that because the location of where these signs are going to be mounted is primarily for being observed by people who are patronizing that particular business, as opposed to general advertising, is important. Because if you're talking about trying to distinguish this case from a future request, that they want to put it on a fence that's just readily available on a roadway, that's the distinction. So I think you want to make clear in the minutes that that was one justification for granting the variance in this particular case. And you're just going to have to be very deliberate anytime something comes before you of why you're granting it or why you're denying it, and trying to to explain your vote, because it's going to get challenged at some point.
Here's another little spin on things. So now with all these LED signs, such as Mr. Planner's, there's a fee if you change signs. But what if you decide to put up in one of his flashes, it's Mind's Eye Graphic? It's right by his business, but it says but it's not a new sign. I mean, is there anything, or if, let's just say like the Catholic Church, if they want to start advertising the parishioners that are in our bulletin on that sign out there, would they be able to do that? So I just think these electronic signs changes everything. So we may need to look into an ordinance that...
Well, I think you want to look at there's got to be ordinances out there in other communities, and I think, we may want to take a look at that.
Off-site advertising?
That's kind of what I'm saying. If they start putting Paul Baker drywall, because he sponsored a basketball team, now is that...
Well, you look on the back of the bulletin, and if they start advertising the sponsors of the bulletin,
Right.
That's exactly what you're doing.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think we need to give it some thought.
Because just like him with his long fence, the last 40 feet he'll probably never ever sell because nobody pulls out and can see it.
Right, well, if you look at the pictures, the one sign is down.
Mhm.
Right.
That's because they wanted it so that when you pass the building, you look to the left, or if you're coming the other way, you look to the right, you see that sign.
Mhm.
But he may never put fill in between, he might go to the outside of the other one.
Okay, and then Dan, I don't know if you were in here when this was discussed, but they're going to hold off doing an election of officers until you got full complement of board members.
Okay, I do have one that I'm going to appoint. Shane Cobble is going to be appointed to one spot, and then I'm waiting on the other one too. So hopefully here in the next week or two we'll have all five.
I'm good,
That's it?
I'm good.
No new, no old left?
Do,
Well, if nobody else has anything, we need a motion then to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?